What's going on, everybody? 1, 2, 3, let's go. Okay. So, this is going to be kind of a shorter live stream, but we're talking about how readers tend to be very tough to control. It's not easy to control somebody who constantly reads. It really is difficult. And the reason it's difficult, sorry, I'm waking up a little bit. I'm going to eat a Pop-Tart in front of you guys here in just a second. But one of the reasons it's so difficult to control somebody who reads is, honestly, people who read for information tend to be more independent. I could say this for myself. I mean, I'll admit I don't read as much as I probably should. I do read, but I find that I do get distracted by the show or doing research into a certain topic. 'Cause I am reading a lot of the time. Just reading for information, though. And that's a good thing. I think that reading for information is a positive. I don't really read a lot of fantasy books, though. At least not anymore. The older I get, the more I just want to read for information. I find reading for information to be heavily pleasurable. I find it to be a very pleasurable experience. And at least that's the way I see it for the most part. But yeah, no, people who read frequently are harder to control, right? They're tougher to manipulate, right? For the most part. Some people who read can be easily manipulated, but those who independently think and really try to harvest what is in the book itself for its information, I think, people like that are tough to control. I know I am. I'm not always very agreeable. That's probably one of the best. I consider that my best quality. People say that agreeableness is a good quality. I think it's detrimental. I think if you're too agreeable in this life, you're going to agree to things that go against your actual values. You know what I mean? And the thing is, for me, when I'm reading the works of a specific author who's giving me information I consider for free, because I get all my books for free, well, or at a low cost from the Goodwill. Anyway, I still love physical books, by the way, mainly because it's easier on the eyes. I could get a Kindle reader, which I'm still thinking about getting one of those, by the way, because they're pretty affordable. I could probably put some ebooks on there. I don't know. It depends. But, yeah. Or I could just get some sort of off-brand ebook reader. I'm fine with that too, as long as it works, as long as it doesn't have a backlight on it. But one of the major points I'm trying to make, though, with readers being so hard to control is that if you're consistently reading books on a subject and you're not reading the news, I don't consider reading the news a form of reading. It is reading, but I don't think it's a reading that'll keep you independent. In fact, it keeps you more mentally of a slave, because it's the content that you're reading also does matter. So there's a few factors. So if you're an independent reader, independent thinker, content that you do consume from what you read does matter. Not all books are created equal. Some books just suck. Some books aren't really good for you at the end of the day. Some authors have terrible philosophies. I'll give you an example. I still think the works of Karl Marx. You could read that. I still think there's some interesting points that he makes about the industrial age and stuff like that. But outside of it, I think it's just, it's still good to read it, by the way. I think you should read things that actually contradict your worldview. I think it's a good thing. It challenges you in a way. And sometimes, and not only that, it does sometimes affirm your beliefs, right? You'll read a book on a specific subject, and it just suddenly affirms your belief even further. You're like, oh, I was right. Because this is garbage. Garbage. And, yeah, give me a few seconds here. Chris, you're the only one here. That's okay. But look, overall, I think when you read at as much as you can, at least, I tend to read at least 10 or 20 pages a day. I try to, at least. I I have a variety of books I still have unfinished. It's good to finish books too, which honestly I've been putting off some books though. It sucks. I've got to be smarter about these things. Hold on. I realized I got to up the ante on this a little bit. There we go. It's a little better. Oh. There we go. Okay. But yeah, so for example, like, I think I used to be pretty easy to manipulate. I used to think that I think the problem was I was too agreeable. You know, I think when you're a little too agreeable, it's not a good thing. I think it tends to be a very negative quality in most human beings. It could be positive in certain situations, but I think too much agreeableness leads to a life of resentment. I don't know. That's my take on it, at least. But no, I think the thing is, readers tend to be more independent because, first off, they have mentors they've never met, which is kind of cool. But they're able to think for themselves without any additional noise. You know what I mean? If you sit in a room and you're just reading alone, right? You know, no music, just you and the book, right? There comes a point, you know, where you're really getting lost in your imagination. I think because the thing is, if I'm one of the reasons I don't like spend too much time consuming YouTube content, even though I like a lot of the YouTube content out there, is because I feel like a lot of it doesn't serve any real purpose. A lot of it just kind of sucks. That's just my simple take on it. Obviously, it's a very simple take, but I find it to be an accurate one for sure. Feel free to disagree with me on that one, by the way, you guys. I'm always open to people disagreeing with me. I might argue back, though, because, like I said, I'm not agreeable. Just a few more moments, though. It's good to see that we got some people on here, though. You know, I think readers are tough to control. People who read quite a bit, who are very independent thinkers, were just very tough to control. And I think that that's a very, I guess you could say, a stoic quality. I don't know if that's accurate, but I would say it's a stoic quality. I think the tougher you are to be manipulated, the tougher it is to manipulate you, the better. David is wondering where my clown makeup is. No clown makeup today, partner. I might do some later. I'm not sure, though. I'm not sure. But yeah, no, one of the reasons I think that reading makes somebody more dangerous as well, in a good way, is it, because society is always trying to market you something, you know, like I think that there's, honestly, I don't go on social media anymore. Don't go on Facebook. I do from time to time if I want to market something, but once I'm done marketing something, I get the hell off of it. I think that social media, I wouldn't say it's destroying society. Well, actually, I would say it is. You know, even YouTube's practices feel a little questionable from time to time. But yeah, I think the thing is, look, it's important not to rely on your smartphone. I mean, don't get me wrong. I still use my desktop computer. I still use my laptop. So I am using an advanced form of technology to get certain things done. But while I'm on those, I'm very productive. I'm figuring out new ways to create this show. Sorry, my brain is just so dead today. Yeah. Maybe I need to guzzle one of these energy drinks. I don't know. Now, one of the things for me is I'm a tough person to control. I really am. You can't control the way I think. Like, you could try to control me physically. You could try to tell me what to believe. But deep down, I'm just going to double down on what I believe. Because you see, the thing is, people try to force, and you see this with governments all the time, try to force ideas down people's throats. And we're talking about like authoritarian governments to make people think a certain way. And it's just, people like me are tough to control, man. But I like seeing people that are reading hardcover books. I think whether it's hardcover books or paperback, it doesn't really matter what you're reading as long as you're reading. I think it does help create an independent mind. Obviously, you're reading words from someone else, right? You're reading words from an author. But it does get you in a different mindset. And if you're also reading books from several different authors, it kind of, a diversification of authors, by the way, even though I talk about diversification of stocks, I think a diversification of authors is effing brilliant, by the way. Hold on, I'll read that chat here in a second. But yeah, no, the more information I consume through written word, as long as it's not slop, as long as it's not brain rot content, you know what I mean? As long as it's not like some romance novel. I think romance novels are, it's basically text porn is what romance novels are. It's just text porn. And, it's just another form of gooning. It's old-fashioned gooning right there. Anyway, let's take a look here. James McCain says scholars and academics have been manipulated by text since the beginning of written language. Critical thinking skills are a prerequisite for effective reading comprehension. Absolutely. And you do have to question the material you're reading. I don't read everything and just take it all, and say, oh, this book is 100% truthful. This is 100% the way I need to do something, or this is the 100% way I need to see the world. No, you have to be analytical of the information. There are some paragraphs that I've read in books, and I'm like, I don't know about that. I'll think it over, and I'll be like, oh, no. Or yes. Sometimes you have assumptions that you make about information, and honestly, it depends on what you're... like I said, I read for information. I'm not out there reading Harry Potter or Lord of the Rings. I have read those, but when I was a kid, right? But I'm not out there seeking fiction books. I'm out there seeking books on understanding a specific skill. Like, I love textbooks. Textbooks are dry as shit, by the way, but I love textbooks because I'm the kind of guy that reads for information. I want to learn additional skills. Like, I want to become a better software developer. I want to, like, for instance, if I want to be more at peace with myself, I'm going to read a book that might get me on that track of being at peace with myself, or something like that. A book that puts me into a different mindset as well. You know what I mean? But I think if you're constantly like reading today's news, or, you know what I mean? I think reading the news, I still think it's brain rot. Like, I consider the news to be the original brain rot. You know what I mean? I would say news reporting back in the day, like, depending on how far back we go, might have actually been more ethical. I think journalistic integrity is effing dead today. I don't believe that there's any journalistic integrity. So, like, I just figure that all articles these days are clickbait, and they're trying to sell me something anyway, so I don't even read it. Most news articles. So yeah, I stick to books that are conceptual. There's no reason for me to care about the news. There really isn't. Honestly, there's not much I could do. And if something's really, really, really breaking, I'll see it. Usually something pops up on my little Windows computer that says breaking news, Trump does this or Trump does that. I'm like, okay, whatever, I don't give a shit. But yeah, my whole point is I really don't give a flying F about what's happening out there in the world. I can only really care about what I'm doing, right? It's more important, I think, to focus on those around you. And you can, and here's the thing, you can still make a difference on a global level by, first off, encouraging others to improve themselves, and then also encouraging yourself to improve yourself as well. What does that mean? It's a very generic statement, obviously. How do you improve yourself? I mean, there's several ways. Okay, so Bones2110 is asking, what if someone gave you $1 million to believe what they want? Oh, sure. I mean, I would do that. Deep down, I wouldn't really. You know what I mean? Because you could pretend to believe in something that's ridiculous. It's called acting. Like, for instance, Bones2110. If you gave me $1 million for me to believe, I'll pretend to believe something. Doesn't mean I actually believe it. For example, if you told me I need to believe that AI is my new god, right? That AI is my overlord. AI is my god. Oh, wait, I already believe that. No, I'm just kidding. But AI is my overlord. AI is my god, right? Let's say you told me, Bones2110, you told me to believe that. I would, and you gave me $1 million. Okay. Every man has his price. $1 million means I can invest that shit. I'll invest that instantly. And then so what I'll do is I'll just pretend to believe that in front of you, you know. Still, you aren't going to change my root thinking. Right? You can force me through fascism or money. You know what I mean? But it doesn't mean I'll actually really believe it, you know? You can't truly force somebody to believe something. And yeah, if you gave me by the way, if you gave me $1 million to pretend, like, I'll say that I actually believe in something ridiculous. For $1 million, absolutely. And if you say that I have no integrity, I don't really give a shit what you believe. That means I would get to retire and pretending to believe something I don't. Do I give a shit? No. Is it unethical? Yeah, nobody's getting harmed. So, yeah, $1 million, hell yeah. No questions asked. I would absolutely invest that shit too. It's not like you're asking me to harm somebody. Like if you gave me $1 million to hurt somebody, I wouldn't do it. I wouldn't do it. I couldn't do it. Because it's not in my nature. It's not how I am. Because I believe that there's a difference between... Because I couldn't do that. Now, however, you give me $1 million to believe something I don't believe. Sure, that's easy. I'll just lie to you because you gave me $1 million. You're bribing me to believe in something I don't believe. Yeah, I'll lie to you. Without a doubt. Me lying to you doesn't matter to me. I consider somebody who bribes me to be my enemy. I'll lie to my enemy any day. I will always lie to my enemy, you know? So if somebody's bribing me and coercing me, yeah, absolutely. And I don't care how that sounds. I really don't. So Bones2110, if you gave me $1 million to believe in something ridiculous, like, I'll give you an example. Here's a funnier one. If you gave me $1 million for me to say that, or for me to believe that communism works, okay. I'm not really going to believe it. I'll just say, yeah, I believe it, sure. Where's that million? Yeah, I believe it. Ooh. Right? No, I'm not going to believe it. Not for a fucking second, because communism's stupid, and I know it's stupid. You know what I mean? But if you're going to give me $1 million to believe in something stupid, yeah, sure, fuck it. You know? Oh, yeah. If you tell me to believe in... I think all of it's stupid. Fidesz cheats. Why? I'm not ignoring you. Well, I'm trying not to ignore anybody. So James says the only thing that makes written language better than spoken is that writers can't use charismatic hypnosis to convince people of unbelief. Exactly. I will say, though, that when you're learning something through a written text, it does matter because you can really take in the information as it is and at your own pace. Sometimes there are days that I can read really quickly. There are days I read slow as shit. Depends on my mind. You know, if I'm a little exhausted, I'm going to read slower. If I'm feeling hyper, I'm going to read quickly, right? But yeah, no. And I'm being honest with you guys that, yeah, if you offered me $1 million to say that I believe in something I don't believe, I'll say I believe it. I'm not really going to change my mind. I'm just going to be like, oh, this moron's giving me $1 million and I'm pretending to believe in something I don't. I'll do that. That means I get to retire. You give me $1 million, that's retirement money right there. I could easily retire. I could put it all in investment accounts, all because, and all I have to do is just be like, oh yeah, I believe in communism. And then in my head, I'm like, communism's gay, you know? And that's it, man. Fidesz Cheat says, why ignore me? You're my favorite streamer. I love you, Fidesz. And Fidesz thinks I'm his long lost dad. Okay, that's cool. But you know what I mean? So like, if you bribe me with money to believe something, I'll do it. Fuck it. I don't care. As long as there's no other strings attached but me saying that I believe in it, right? Now, you know what I mean? Like, you could bribe anybody with money. You can encourage them, but they're still going to believe what they believe. You can't just, you know what I mean? Because, like, let's say somebody tried to whip me, right? And they tried to say, hey, you need to believe in this stupid idea. And I'll be like, okay, sure. Whatever, as long as you stop whipping me. But deep down, I'm resentful of that dude and I'm resentful of that idea. You know what I mean? So you can't use, really, in all reality, you can't use violence and you can't use money to truly change somebody's mind, right? I mean, you could think that you can, but really, in all reality, you can't. And yeah, I would sell out in a heartbeat. For fucking sure. However, I do have an ethical code to this extent. Like I said, I would never harm anybody for $1 million. You know what I mean? I would never harm anybody for any amount of money. I think it's wrong. I really do. I would feel bad about it for the rest of my life. No amount of money would make me feel better about that. Ever. Just wouldn't. So yeah, before you guys say, oh, he would do anything for $1 million. No, I wouldn't. I would pretend to believe in something stupid for $1 million. Absolutely. Because at the end of the day, I don't really care what you think. I only care about what I think. And if I get $1 million to basically act like I believe in something retarded, yeah, sure. That's the way I see it. And also that would mean that my girlfriend would get to retire too, all because, you know what I mean? Like, I would sell out in a heartbeat if I got to retire early. Hell yeah. You know what I mean? Because then my girlfriend could retire early. She wouldn't have to do her job that she hates, you know? I don't know if she actually hates it. I think she does like her job. I really do. But sometimes, I mean, like, there are days that she has a tough time. And honestly, she works in a pretty tough field. So I think most people have a tough time in the field that she works in. I'm not going to say specifically what field she works in, but you know what I mean? She does a good job. And I think she does like her job when it's not crazy, you know. But anyway, yeah, no. You give me $1 million to believe in something I don't believe, sure. Am I going to argue with that? No. Because the only person that's harmed is me, and do I give a shit? No. My life has been nothing but trials and tribulations. So it means one less hassle in my life. $1 million would mean one less hassle in my life. Quite a few less hassles. I would just invest it into several ETFs, and that's all I would do. And I would just live off the dividends for the rest of my life. Simple as that. You give me $1 million to believe in something I don't believe, I will do it. I will do it. It's called acting. You can't really force somebody to change their mind, though, even through money. Because deep down, I'm still thinking that's stupid. I still think communism's stupid. And you know, the irony of that, wouldn't that be so funny? If I got paid $1 million to say that communism's awesome, right? And that communism works. The irony of that. Think about it. The fucking irony. ET says, if I had $1 million, the first thing I would do, I'd do is pay Garza. You'd pay me? Hell yeah. Well, I appreciate that, man. But no, I mean, I think about it this way. Seriously, you give me even $100,000 to pretend like I believe in something I don't. Okay. Okay. Sounds stupid to me. It would basically mean that my girl, because I'm thinking about more than just myself in this equation, right? I'm thinking about my girlfriend. I'm thinking about that we can actually live a life where we don't have to worry about money. That sounds good to me. Cool. I'll just invest half of it and keep the other half in a checking account. I probably wouldn't keep all of it in a checking. I'd probably keep majority of it in brokerage accounts. But either way, you know what I mean? Like, it'd be one of those situations where I wouldn't have to worry about money at all. I would just invest it, and then the dividends would come in, and I'd be a happy man. And then top that off, the investments that I would have in my portfolio would grow, and it'd be a good situation. AG is asking, are you gay? I look gay. But no. What's going on, everybody? How y'all doing? It's me, your boy. Standing on the edge of forever, at the start of whatever, shouting love at the world. But no, readers are very tough to control at the end of the day, and that's a good thing. I think the tougher you are to control, the better. And look, you could think that you control me. You can't. I'll never change my mind. I mean, I'll change my mind on certain things if there's information that comes to me that seems pretty reasonable. The information needs to be accurate, though, and there needs to be multiple sources for me to believe something. Most of the time, I don't know, I think that most things are garbage. But no, I do believe there's good material out there. I believe that when you're reading a book on a concept, like for instance, when I'm reading books on software development, like for instance, like a book on Python or C++, I'm in my Zen mode. I'm in happy world at that point. You know what I mean? I'm all about it. Cause although no one understood, there was more of them than us. Learning how to dance the rain. Learning how to dance the rain. We were holding back the flood. They'd said we'd never dance again. Fidesz Cheats is asking, can you do ASMR? I could. Do I want to? No. But I could. I'm not against it, by any means. What kind of ASMR do you want me to do, brother? What do we want in here? Well, I'm trying to think what kind of ASMR do you want me to do? But look, overall, I will say this. Readers tend to be tougher to control. You know, I do, like I said, I like to read at least 10 to 20 pages a day at the bare minimum. You know, and a lot of the times, I mean, I am reading information on the internet. I try not to consume too much video. When I say information, I'm not talking about news articles, because I think news articles are stupid. I'm talking about actual articles or actual pieces of information on a subject that I need to understand. And that matters. It does matter. Yeah, I don't really give that much of a shit about politics. I think political books are ridiculous because politics is basically just theater at the end of the day. So I'm not a big fan of theater. I like acting, you know, but it's just kind of ridiculous. Lane Kiffin going to LSU. I actually have no clue who Lane Kiffin is. I don't really keep track of college football, man. I'm not a college football guy, man. I don't really watch college sports at all. I know, I don't have all my makeup on, man. I don't have my frosting on. I feel naked without my frosting, bro. I can't help it, man. I feel naked. I'm eating a Pop-Tart, man. Well, it's a Toast-'em. It's a Dollar Tree Pop-Tart. Pretty good. But no, people who read tend to be tougher to control. I will say, for the most part, if I were to go into further detail about this, I can really use myself as a reference point because I really am tough to control. I think for myself. And I'm okay with being an individual. I don't think acting as an individual is a selfish act. I don't. So many people think that individuality means selfishness. To the contrary. I believe that collectivism is a form of selfishness. I believe that individualism is actually the ultimate form of selflessness. And I'll explain why. Because you're focusing on yourself to be better for others. In a lot of ways. Now, not all individuals believe in that mantra, but I noticed that a lot of people who are individualists tend to be more richer, tend to be more charitable. And I find that collectivists tend to be neither. They just complain about things. They don't try to improve themselves. They think that society needs to be improved, when in all actuality, they are just pissed that their life sucks. And usually it's because they do it to themselves. They create the devils that they're fighting. And, individualists, though, I praise individualists. I believe that individualists, like, I am an individualist deep down, and I'm very happy about that. Because individuals have the ability to think for themselves. That's why I read so much. Well, I'm reading another author's work, another person's work, but I'm also thinking about that work, right? I'm not just blindly agreeing with it. I'm actually curious about it. And by the way, I do believe in the old mantra that a fool learns from his own mistakes and a wise man learns from other people's mistakes. Cannon Webb, you should absolutely subscribe, dude. I'm the man. I'm very sexy. I also talk about Chris Hansen on this show, and I talk about investing concepts a lot. But yeah, I love Chris Hansen. I don't feel bad about that, man. Yeah, authenticity. Look, I would rather go through this life just being who I really am and not being liked, because obviously I'm not a popular guy. You know, I'm an acquired taste, without a doubt. But I do believe that being an individual and focusing on individualism is not necessarily selfish, because you are not the group. This is one of the fundamental issues that I have with collectivism. Unless you're like the Borg, right? The reason that collectivism works within the Borg collective is because they're all intertwined together and also forced to believe in something specific, right? I still think that collectivism in its own right is stupid. That eventually even the Borg will get screwed over by their own collectivism. You know? Does it take a while? Sure. But yeah, I think that collectivism in most forms just doesn't work. The Borg, for those of you who don't know, are from Star Trek, The Next Generation, Star Trek Voyager. So the Borg are basically a cybernetic species, a fictional, by the way, fictional cybernetic species, and they're a pure collective consciousness. They do have the Borg Queen that they introduced, which was stupid, but we'll skip past that. But no, they're a pure collective consciousness for the most part, at least the way they were originally written, and it makes them pretty ominous in a lot of ways. But they're all interconnected with each other, so they all share thoughts. But they're all a collective. You could even argue that the collective is basically brainwashed in a lot of ways, because everything is, even their minds are modified by the cybernetic implants to believe in a common cause. So it's basically, there's no freedom in the Borg collective, none at all. So that's something to keep in mind about the Borg in Star Trek. Oh, thank you, Dave Kendall, for the thumbs up. Appreciate it. But yeah, the Borg are cybernetic organisms, and look, I think collectivism in the short term seems like a good idea. But over the long term, look, 10 years, 20 years, 30 years out, it tends to decay. It's on a decay path because there is no incentive in collectivism. There's no incentive to do better. So what happens is eventually everybody just becomes poor and miserable, right? So in capitalism, which is more of an individualist concept, in capitalism, yes, there are still poor people. It's not a perfect system. But would you rather have only 5% of the population, or 10% or 20% or 30% of the population be poor? Or let's look at communism and socialism, which honestly 95 to 90% of everybody is basically poor and miserable. But at least nobody envies each other. Ooh, I would rather have a society where people envy each other and get mad at people for being richer than they are than have an entire society where everybody's poor and hating life. I'll take capitalism any day. Is there a better system than capitalism? Probably. I just know that the best system is an individualist system where it gives an incentive to produce at a high level. Collectivism, most concepts in collectivism don't encourage anybody to produce at a high level. That's why I don't like it. So at the end of the day, I'm an individualist. I love to read. I don't read the news. I think it's brain rot. I really do. In fact, you could argue that the news was the original brain rot. Like, you know how people doom scroll? I think the news is another form of doom scrolling, by the way. And it's just looking for terrible things because that's all the news reports on is terrible things. That affects your psyche at a certain point. It really, really does. And it makes you a miserable person. It's one of the reasons I don't watch the news. I don't read the news. I don't watch the news. I'll take a glance at some of the headlines, but I really don't care beyond the headline. If a headline piques my interest, sure, I'll read the article and see what it's about. But I take that shit with a grain of salt. I'm not saying be ignorant to the world around you. I'm just saying be cautious. Don't believe everything that you breathe. And honestly, getting caught up in the news really isn't good for you. You know, there's just, who cares? You know, obviously there's shitty things that are happening. And if you want to stand up for a cause, you want to protest, you know, go for it, whatever. But, yeah. Even when Joe Biden was president, I wasn't even reading the news that much. I would sometimes take a peek at the headlines, be like, what's this dumbass doing, you know? And it was nothing. He was doing nothing, but yeah. And look at it this way. I also don't watch the news because I feel like there's a bias in the news today, like a real bias. And it's very left-leaning because they never talked about Joe Biden having Alzheimer's, basically, having dementia, and allegedly. And the thing is, it's like, you take one look at him, it's like, come on. Come on, man. But, you know, I'm not going to go into politics on this one too hard. Look, I'm an independent thinker. At the end of the day, I'm just an independent thinker. I do think for myself. I really do. And my love of reading allowed me to be the individualist I am today. And not only that, I was compelled to read these materials myself, right? No government told me that I should read this. By the way, if the government told me I need to read something, I probably might be kind of resentful to them. I might not read it. You know what I mean? It's just like the Bible. I'm always told that I need to read the Bible. I've read some of it, but, you know, I take a lot of things with a grain of salt. You know, you just can't believe everything that you breathe, you know? So be smart about what you're taking in. Be smart about the stuff that you're taking in. And look, it's good to read things that contradict your worldview. It challenges you to think outside of yourself. At the end of the day, most of the time, I was right about my original assertion, but it's good to have a different point of view on a subject that I disagree with. I do believe that. I still think communism sucks. I think all forms of collectivism are just ass. And I favor individualist concepts. Do I believe that you can have some, you know, do I believe that you should have some collectivist concepts in reality? Sure. But they should not be at a large scale. I believe that collectivism at a larger scale is actually poisonous to an entire civilization and will destroy a civilization. That's why I don't believe in democracy. I believe in a constitutional representative republic. Boom. But like I said, I won't go into politics too much. For me personally, though, like it's better to be tougher to control. So I encourage everybody who watches this show to read. Read for information. And I think physical copies of books, and I'm gonna sound like an old man, but I think it's better to own a physical copy of a book. And then obviously once you're done with the book, you can give it away. You know, if it's taking up space in your house, go find a little book nook around town. It's so funny, in my town I got like 4 book nooks that I tend to go to when I've already read a book and want to get rid of it, you know, and I'm like, I don't want to give it to the Goodwill, because the Goodwill's going to like sell it for like $4 or $5. I'd rather just give it away for free at a book nook. You know, I love those little book nooks, the little tiny little wood structures that they have set up around certain towns. It's good shit. But yeah, it's the way I look at it, man. So what are you guys thinking about? So Clockwork Orange is saying, depends on who's poor. I'll take fascism. No one understands. Listens to the news. No one. What? Clockwork Orange is as good as long. I don't think collectivism's good. No. In any form or fashion. I think it's better to go live on YouTube. I think Twitch is way more strict about what you can stream. One person I'm surprised hasn't gotten banned fully from Twitch is Asmund Gould. I'm actually a little bit shocked by that, but he has a very big presence on YouTube. I think that Asmund Gould needs to start streaming on YouTube full time, because I think streaming on Twitch is poison. I would rather I will. Unless I have no other choice, I will never stream on Twitch. I prefer YouTube overall. And the reason I prefer YouTube is just I think the content, first off, I think the monetization incentives are there on YouTube more than they are on Twitch. I'm not a fan of Twitch at all. I mean, maybe I'll give it more of a try. I don't know. It just seems more like a gaming live streaming platform than anything else. Now, obviously, Asmund Gould and Hassan Piker, two different dudes, by the way, in their approach, but they're pretty big on on Twitch, as far as political streamers are concerned. But yeah. Imagine a world full of intelligent beings. Yeah, I mean, look, I think most people are pretty intelligent. Like, I really do believe that most people are fairly intelligent. Dave says Americans are blessed and should be grateful to be living in the USA. Everyone has the same opportunities and has the potential to have an amazing life if they work hard enough. To some degree, you're right, Dave, but I will admit it is becoming more and more difficult for the American dream to take place. And I don't think everybody's clever enough to make the money that they need. And I don't, I like to try to have faith in most people, but honestly, take a look at how many people are in debt. Like, the debt levels are extreme. Like I said, I do take most studies with a grain of salt, but this doesn't surprise me to see this. Chart showing household debt. So this is there's an image I'm looking at. I'm not going to show it on the screen. There's an image from Visual Capitalist called "The Growth of U.S. Consumer Debt," and I think one of the biggest pyramid schemes, by the way, Ponzi schemes, whatever you want to call it, is college loans. I really do believe that college loans are probably the biggest scam ever promoted to people. Look at this. So the growth of U.S. consumer debt from 2004 all the way to, was this 2023. So this is a bit of an outdated chart, but I'm pretty sure that this chart is still relevant even in 2025. So this goes all the way up to 2023. So student loan debt was pretty low all the way back in 2004. And as I look at this chart, I guess I could show it on the screen. Why not? Hold on. Let me show it on the screen for you guys. Here we go. So if we look at this chart, the growth of U.S. consumer debt, right? So we start, U.S. student loan debt has grown 5.3x since 2003. That's huge. 430% gain from 2004 for student loan debt. Student loan debt, actually, that is, I don't know how much of a bubble it is, but you can't even like go bankrupt on those loans. And then we got auto loans, which is this little white line right here. It goes from 0%. Let's see. That goes all the way up to like 91%. Okay. But then we got mortgage. We got general inflation, of course. So inflation over time, 66% since 2004 to 2023. And of course, we got credit card debt. But yeah, I mean, look, the raising of debt overall has been incredible. So I mean, it's tougher to have the American dream than it was back in like our parents' age, for sure. I do think that needs to be acknowledged to some degree. Hey, honey. Hello. Now, I'm not going to be live for too much longer. I'm going to end the stream here in a little bit, but I do want to go over this chart. I think it's important because, like, while working hard matters, I will say that in a lot of ways, you kind of have to reject traditional society at a certain point. Because, I mean, what societal norms have been is basically just get into massive debt, don't ask questions, stand in line, don't ask any questions. And that's what societal norms have been. And it's pretty weird to me. I don't know. And I rejected societal norms at a very young age, so I came out for the better. You know, I'm obviously not a normal person, because if I was, I would be like most people. I would be in the same situation as most people. Obviously, I am the anomaly, and I'm happy about that. And I want you guys to be the anomaly too. I don't want you guys to be a statistic. I really don't. I don't want to see you guys as statistics. And, you know, is there a better way to live? Don't know. I'm not sure the best way. But, you know, you can work hard, sure. But at the end of the day, is hard work all that there is to it? No. I mean, well, like, hard work's a part of the equation. Don't get me wrong. But you got to be smart about what you're doing. Not only do you need to work hard, you need to be smart about the money that you receive for the work that you do, right? So there's the hard work. There's the goals that you have in mind. And look, I think everybody's so focused on retirement. Well, what you need to be focused on, and this is not financial advice by any means, but income being the outcome, right? And I think when you start having passive income at a younger age, you get used to not simply relying on a paycheck, right? You get used to knowing that there is another source of income out there, not just your job. That's huge. So, and I really like to advocate multiple streams of income. You know, maybe more handouts will help. So here's the thing. So I think debt is a problem. In a lot of ways, it is a form of slavery. But it is a slavery that you get to choose, which is sad, which sucks. That's a tough one. It's a tough one, man. But no, I guess this chart kind of surprised me a little bit because I didn't realize student loan debt was such an empire. I knew it was big, but I didn't know it was this big. It kind of makes me realize, and also when you look at college tuitions as well, like the reason college tuition is so high is because they know that students, because these kids have been brainwashed by their parents in public schools, that they need to go to college. You better go to college or you're not going to be worth anything in life. But now college degrees don't even fucking matter. And I was right. I told my dad, because my dad tried to pressure me to go to college, and I was like, I'll do a semester and see how I like it. I did a semester, and I thought it was stupid. And I pride myself in that. I pride myself in making that distinction that college isn't teaching me. I mean, unless I want to be a lawyer or a doctor or something in society that really matters, yeah, I'm not going to college. But no, I believe at the end of the day, you do have some sort of a choice. I think it's best to reject society. I believe the best way to stay out of debt is reject society. Reject it. Straight up just say like, nope, I'm not going to fall prey to this. I'm not going to be just another statistic. So if you want to avoid being a statistic, reject society. Reject it. If people are telling you to buy something, don't buy it. Reject society. I'm not saying be antisocial. I'm not saying don't talk to anybody. Nothing like that. What I'm trying to get at is reject the things reject the stupid things about society, right? This is where critical thinking comes in mind. This is why I always say readers are dangerous. So if you read a lot and you have an independent mind and you start thinking for yourself, you become dangerous. It's a good thing. It's a good thing because then nobody can really manipulate you. And when you're not easy to manipulate, when you're unshakable, oh man, the world opens up for you, brother. Brothers and sisters, I feel like a preacher. But yeah, no, the world opens up to you when you reject society to some degree. If you reject the stupid things in society, the world opens up for you in a positive light. And I'll happily say that. I will say that, look, I'm not always happy, and that's okay. But I will say that I'm probably happier than most. And I don't like to I try not to compare myself to others, but I do think that there's a lot of suffering out there. And I do think a lot of the suffering is caused by our own actions. I really do. And I do believe that a lot of the stuff that we get ourselves into is a choice. You know, I think we act like we don't have any choices in life, but we do. And we need to make the right ones starting now. Not tomorrow, but now. And I've made a lot of different choices. You know, I'm always trying to find ways to improve my life because I can't really go out and force the world to change, but I can force myself to change. You know, I can absolutely force myself to change. And that's the most important thing, is really looking inward instead of outward. I think that we live in a society where we think we always have to look outside of ourselves. And honestly, okay, I think it's, you know, you got to figure out what you are. You got to improve yourself, get some skills, learn what you can. Don't be easily manipulated. Control your own thoughts, right? The salesperson manipulated you to refinance and keep... No, I actually chose to refinance because I am a good investor. I chose to refinance my car, for example. The reason I chose to refinance my car, lower monthly payments and lower interest rate too. So not only was I obviously extended it out, so I'll be paying more in interest over time, but because I invest so much, my dividends practically pay for my entire car loan per month. So in a sense, I'm able to invest doing what I know, investing in real assets like stocks. Because, you know, my car is a depreciating asset. You know, it's an asset. It's a depreciating one, but it's still an asset. And I prefer to take the extra money, because why would I pay off my entire car loan? Why would I do that? That's stupid. That's short-term thinking. Instead of me paying off my entire car loan, let's extend it out. That's extra money for me to invest. Good. That money's going to grow over time because I'm a well-diversified investor and I'm very smart about it. And that's all she wrote. So at the end of the day, I'm protecting myself in multiple ways. But yeah, it's just an interesting thing. Like the growth of U.S. consumer debt this is from 2003 to 2023. But it's still something to keep in mind. And you know what's funny? I noticed that there wasn't a lot of credit card debt. Up until recently, credit card debt has gone up like crazy in 2023. And inflation's real. And the reason inflation happens is because, well, first off, I don't know how much longer the dollar can be the reserve currency of the world. That is what has held us up for so long. But yeah, how long do we stay the reserve currency of the world? That is the ultimate question. Smart people buy the car for cash. Well, here's the thing, dude. Why would I pay the whole car in cash when my investments can pay off the whole car eventually, and I could still get to keep the money? A car is a depreciating asset, dude. Why would I pay full out in cash? I don't mind paying the loan. It's pretty easy to if you have assets that pay you. You know, I got plenty of dividends that pay me. It's a win-win situation for me. No, but when you read like actual work, you know what I mean? Like when you're tough to control when you read. Like when you actually read for information purposes only, you're a tough person to control because you're critically thinking. If you're critically thinking about the information that you're reading, it helps. Because you don't have to blindly agree with everything you read. It's like the old saying goes, don't believe everything that you breathe. You know? And then here's another chart on, let's see, charting 17 years of American household debt. Change in the U.S. household debt, let's see, percentage change, wow. Student loans, 546% growth. Auto loans, 114%. And this is all the way to, I think this is another 2023 one. Mortgage, 103%. HE revolving, I don't know what that means. 19% for credit card debt and others is minus 12%. Yeah, so here's the thing. I think it depends on what you're going into debt for. I do believe that the student loan industry is a toxic one. It's probably one of the most toxic out there. I'm not a fan. I think the student loans thing is so predatory because here's the thing. Young kids are susceptible. Right? They're susceptible to suggestion. They are more agreeable, right? And not only that, parents pressure their kids to go to college. Public schools pressure their kids to go to college. It's a bad situation, man. And I think that people need to just reject college. I'm not saying get stupider, obviously. You can educate yourself without going to college, by the way. You don't need the degree. If you want to get the degree, fine. But remember, there's a price to pay. And how committed are you, right? So many people go to college for the experience, and I think that's stupid. I went for a semester and thought this was stupid. And honestly, when I was younger, I just hung out at the dorms. I didn't have a dorm. I just hung out with people at dorms and played video games. And I wasn't even enrolled in college. So you can have the college experience. You don't have to go to college. Do you see what I'm saying? So the college experience that people talk about, you don't need to necessarily be enrolled in college to have the college experience. By the way, if you want to see what college is like, you don't even have to pay. You can audit classes. In auditing a class means you just go in and you chill out and you learn the subject. You don't get any credit for it. But maybe you want to hear a lecture or two. Cool. I've actually considered auditing a few classes at SWAC. I've actually considered that. There's probably a few classes that I would like to actually, learn. I think you could even audit the online courses. I don't know. I can't remember how it all works. But yeah, that's the beauty. You don't get any credit, but you learn. If it's a subject you want to learn and you feel like you learn it better with an actual person lecturing, sure. But yeah, I mean, in today's age, man, most of the information you need is out there. It's there. You don't have to reach that far to get it. You either have to reach into your pocket or bring your laptop with you, whatever. But that's the way I see it. Anyway, though, you guys, I want to thank you all for stopping by on this particular live. Dolphin Tactics says college teaches you social communication. That's what. No. Here's the thing. By the way, I'm very decent. I wouldn't say I'm the best, but I can socially communicate. Look, I did my job for 13 years. 13 years. Very well. And I communicated perfectly. The irony was the person I was dealing with did not communicate very well. They treated me like garbage. That's all I'm going to say about that. So don't say I got fired for a lack of communication skills when I clearly have the ability to communicate. All right? Anyway. Such bullshit, dude. But, yeah. Yeah, T-Tech sucks. T-Tech is a terrible company. Anyway, I will let you all go. Remember, don't let people control you. If you want to be less controlled, don't always watch the news. Don't read the news all the time. I think it's brain rot. Basically, I think the news is the original brain rot, if we're going to be honest. And I mean, obviously, there's worse forms of brain rot today than I ever thought possible. But, you know, I think it's cooler to be offline. Hey, Samuel Westall, what up, dude? Much respect, much love, bro. But anyway, I want to thank you guys for tuning in. I'll catch you all later, and I'm going to do another live at some point. We'll see how I'm feeling. I mean, obviously I'm going to keep doing live videos today. I got to check the markets real quick, see if I can make a few profits, and we'll go on from there. Yep, ignore the noise and stay focused on goals, not obstacles. Yep. Look, there's always going to be problems in life. It's really, you got to keep, I just focus on my goals. Take care of the problems, focus on the goals.